Hi, I'm Ed Pavlik in Lexington, Kentucky. We're going to start GYN ONC Garage this month. And my colleague here is
Frank Lawton from London, UK.
very good. Well, the paper we're talking about this time has to do with diet and HPV. The paper, Frank, I'm going to turn over to you. Why don't you give us an introduction and tell us what you think about this paper?
Okay, well, I don't think there's much argument that a good diet, however you want to define that, is very useful, has positive benefits for all sorts of things, particularly in cancers and precancers, antioxidant treatments and things like that. And this paper, they've looked at over 10,000 patients with HPV on a single cervical smear, and looked and used a thing called the HEI, which is the Healthy Eating Index, which looks at the proportion of dairies, seafood, green foods, fruit juices, fruits, etc., in a diet. And they've shown that there's quite a strong correlation between the HEI and the HPV status. They've divided the patients into low risk and high risk and have shown that the high risk patients are more likely to have a poor diet and a diet that is not particularly good in greens, beans, seafood, etc.
High risk is determined by the type of HPV virus.
Indeed, yeah, low risk and high risk, yeah, on a single smear. So I think few people would argue about this. I think it's an interesting study. It does seem to suggest that there is a link between a good diet and being able to shed or in some way get rid of the virus. The problem is, I think it's a cross-sectional study rather than a longitudinal study. So we don't know whether the results of a healthy diet are going to help shed the virus in the first place. It's self-reported as well, so I think there are always limits and problems with self-reporting diets. If the patients are being asked about their diet, they might well actually recall things that aren't appropriate. And what they've said is they cannot show a causal effect between a good quality diet rich in the antioxidants that they're describing and cervical cytology. They refer to another paper, interestingly, from the same university, but a different department, looking at a more longitudinal study of patients with HPV. And I think the interesting part of this study, this is the one, is although they say in the abstract there is no difference in overall diet quality between the groups, intake of total and whole fruit and seafood plant protein was associated with HPV resolution in a logistic regression model. So it seems that they're not quite sure what they've said here. I assume overall diet quality is to do with more things than just greens, etc. But they do they do show that there is a link between the greens and regression of they say it's CIN, but let's face it, it's not CIN. It's a cytological diagnosis, not a histological diagnosis. But I think that's probably pushing it a little bit. And they do suggest, and you can see from the figures that you just put up, that there is an adjusted p-value that does show total vegetables, fruits, juice, whole grains, dairy, etc., do have an effect on resolution of HPV. I think that's really all I've got to say about this. It's an interesting paper. I hope that it doesn't start people and saying, and all you need is a good quality diet. But what we do need is a good quality longitudinal study that looks at diet and the incidence of HPV/CIN. The problem is, of course, that very few clinicians will see a patient with either HPV positive CIN and will not treat the cervical abnormality. So I think it's going to be difficult to write a study that says we're just going to look at diet alone, because I think clinicians would be anxious about that at the present time. They will treat the CIN regardless of the patient's dietary quality or dietary intake.
Sure, Frank. I mean, I agree with you. In the paper that we refer to second, I think there's a misstatement that they made that they didn't catch when they were proofing it, but I think they have showed a difference. And, you know, it's clear in their data that there is a difference. So let's go back to the first paper. One of the things I'll say about it is it's a large group study, which makes it very good. And in any of these, we don't know what sort of delay can occur. So is this an effect that's long lasting, or if they waited just a little bit longer, the effect would become not noticeable. But as reported, it's quite a big effect. I mean, basically the odds ratio is decreased roughly 2.5 times by the high quality diet, the one that's scored by high quality. And the long of it and the short of it is I can't argue with the data. I think we should apologize for presenting a paper that has accepted materials across it, but that's the way, you know, it was in the literature. And I think if we can get down here to their very important table, and that's this one right here.
Yeah.
We can see when they've adjusted for everything, which is adjusting for the covariables and a multivariate analysis, that each one of the factors that they're increasing or show as increasing with more and more better things to eat results in an odds ratio that's decreasing. So they are showing this benefit due to what they're saying. So it occurs in a large group, but it occurs at a one-time look from a large database that that they used. Overall, it looks like there's a benefit to eating well, not just the things that they identify as important. And lastly, I'll say that one of the unidentified factors that could be very, very important is additional partners. The number of sexual partners for the participants is identified, but not the number of sexual partners of their sexual partner. We can certainly have a situation where a woman is committed to a monogamous relationship, but her partner is not, and that could be an infective source, of the disease. So, Frank, that's all I have to say on both of these. I'll point out to you one thing that has happened since we did our last GYN ONC Garage is someone sent me a message and wanted to know if we knew that there were bloopers in our presentations, and so I replied that I was surprised that we didn't have just one blooper, that we didn't have lots of bloopers. Anyway, that's where we are. I'll tell you what. Let's plan on doing this again next month, and unless you have something to add, we'll call it quits for this.
I'll just add one thing, Ed. If there's someone is prepared to look through it all and find out bloopers, that's good for me. At least we've got an audience.
And at least we don't have blooper after blooper after blooper after blooper.
That's true. Yeah. Did your correspondent say what the blooper was, or the bloopers were, or was it just you have some?
Yeah, you have some. That was it.
Okay. Well, I'll go looking, see what I can find.
Okay, Frank. Well, I'll see you next month.
And we're looking forward to it, Ed.